All right, Monday, July 5th. This is meteorologist Brian McClure. I wanted to wait until we got the 11 a.m. update today to go ahead and give you an update. There hasn't been a whole lot of changes with Elsa, but that being said, kind of what I've been saying all week long, just because it doesn't look like a very strong storm, doesn't mean we won't have any effects in the Florida area. We definitely will have some impacts. I'm kind of thinking back to Ada last year, and that was kind of a classic tropical storm that maybe wasn't that strong, and a lot of people said, well, it's not that big a deal, and that's to somewhat extent that is true. But if you lived on the coast and asked those people, hey, was it a big deal? It was to some people because they had 2 to 3 feet of water coming in on the coastline. So that's one of the reasons why you have to be careful with each one of these storms with the language that you use, because if you just dismiss it, there's always going to be somebody that is affected by something. So let's go over what's happening right now. And I can tell you right now, it is not a strong storm, luckily. The center of circulation is right down in here on the south side of Cuba. It has some decent banding features. You can see coming around like this, okay? All the active weather, though, is on the eastern side. There's almost nothing out here on the western side. That being said, the eastern side is going to be the side that does kind of scrape by through Florida. And yet another reason why we can't totally dismiss this. Let me zoom in a little bit closer for you, and let me show you what it looks like. There you go. Now you can get a better idea. The center of circulation appears to be right about in here. Okay, it's right about in there. I know you can't really tell, but there are some banding features coming around like this, and then the winds are kind of coming in like that. However, the winds are very weak down in here. The strongest winds are definitely right in here, tucked in real close on the east and northeastern side of the storm. Elsa is not a big storm. To put it into perspective, this storm is kind of fitting in right here in the channel, just on the southwestern side of Cuba. That's it. That's pretty much the entire storm. All the rest of the stuff you're looking at is pretty much just cloud cover and some rain. Well, when they went in and did the latest reconnaissance aircraft, they really didn't find a whole lot. The extrapolation of the pressure was down to 1,006, but you don't need to know a whole lot about what you're looking at other than all this blue color here on the western side. That's very little wind. I mean, that's like 10 mile per hour winds. That's almost nothing. The wind is definitely right here on the east and northeastern side, okay? And so that hasn't really changed during Elsa's entire lifespan. That is nothing new. When you look at the peak winds, that also really hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, look at this. This is not that impressive. You know, you're seeing some of these winds right in here, and it's like, okay, that's about it. You know, they're kind of poking up here into this, 40, 50 knot range. So can it be something that gives us some sloppy weather and hassles in Florida? Absolutely. But is it going to be the strongest windstorm that we've ever seen? No, not even remotely close. So you definitely have to keep things in perspective. There's the latest track, and you can see that there hasn't been a whole lot of change. Maybe it's shifted a little bit to the west. So for example, a couple days ago, it was maybe more like here. But remember, this is an error cone. A lot of people call it the forecast cone, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with people calling it the forecast cone, but really, in all honesty, to meteorologists, it's an error cone. So don't just say, oh, well, there's your straight line, and that's where all the active weather will be. No, that's not really the way it works. If the forecast calls for maybe the center of circulation to be out here offshore Florida, well, the active weather, remember what I just said, it's going to be on the east and northeastern side. Well, that's going to be right there. So basically, this is going to scrape by the west coast of Florida with sloppy, squally weather. And this is going to be the tomorrow time frame, so Tuesday going into Tuesday night time frame, and possibility of tornadoes. And yes, some storm surge. I don't expect the storm surge to be ridiculous. Probably 2 to 4 feet at its peak. But yeah, that can cause some issues. Let's go to this graphic. Let me show you why, a couple of reasons why this storm probably won't strengthen much more. And if anything, it might even weaken. I could see it weakening and then trying to strengthen briefly tomorrow. So this graphic shows a general idea of where the center of circulation will probably be late tonight, okay, as it crosses Cuba. So as of right now, it's more like in here. So there's your northwest movement. What I want you to notice, though, is, let me change the color here, is this right in here. There appears to be wind flow. This is upper level wind flow coming in like this, what we call wind shear. So you like to see that to keep the storm weak. So as Elsa comes here into the southeastern Gulf, it probably won't be able to do a whole lot and strengthen a whole lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if Elsa weakens late tonight, stays somewhat weak right here in the southeastern Gulf, and then at some point, right about there, that's like midday tomorrow, Tuesday time frame, you see that wind shear kind of goes away. There's a little bit of it right in here, absolutely. So there's still some wind shear. So this is definitely going to be a lopsided storm, which we see a lot here in Florida. This is not a surprise. So all the active weather, what I mean to everybody out there, a lopsided storm means all the active weather will be on the eastern side. There will almost be nothing out here in the Gulf. It might even be sunny. There might be sunny skies out here in the center of the Gulf while we're dealing with nasty, squally weather. So there will be some wind shear, but the main point is I want you to see it does back off out in here. And so I think there will be a small window midday to mid-afternoon tomorrow where it could strengthen. I don't think it's going to matter too much for our forecast, but I bring that up only because, strictly speaking, again, let's look at the winds. Okay, so this is just a wind graphic, surface winds. And you can see very obviously, look at all the strong winds on the eastern side. Almost nothing out here on the western side. And that's coming away from the coast of from Cuba, From Cuba tonight going into tomorrow morning. You can see just in the western Keys, right near Key West. And then it starts to make its northerly turn, okay? Well, sure enough, you can see that when it passes Tampa, the strongest winds will be right there, scraping right along our Gulf Coast. So you could have a situation where there's very little wind in Polk County, maybe 20 mile per hour winds, and there's 40 to 50 mile per hour winds right along the immediate coast. I could totally see that situation. And that's another reason why we always have to use our language or choose our language very, very carefully, because you don't want to just say, hey, when you're talking to 4 or 5 million people across Central Florida, hey, it's not going to be a big deal. Well, it will be for some people. And then other people, it won't be a big deal. So it really just depends on where you're located. So in this particular storm, it's definitely going to be a West Coast Florida type storm. If you live in western Manatee County, Pinellas County, western Pasco, western Hernando, western Citrus County, those areas, you are going to have the most effects, most impacts. 2 to 4 foot storm surge possible, some squally weather, heaviest of rains. Let me put the wind swath on from this product, and this kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at, okay? So this kind of gives you an idea of, okay, maybe the strongest winds do barely stay offshore, but look at that, scraping right by our coastline. There they are right there. And so those wind gusts are right there in the 50s. So 40s and 50s, definitely a possibility. If it goes just a little bit farther offshore, you're going to see this stay away from our coastline. If it comes just a little bit closer, you're going to see those extended maybe further into Hillsborough and Central Pasco and Polk County. So that's the thing that we're looking at right now. And a lot of people will ask me, well, what about the European model? The GFS model has been the better model during this entire lifespan of Elsa. However, we don't discount and just throw out the Euro. It does show a little bit farther west, and ironically, it actually shows the storm strengthening a little bit more right out in here, but it shows it farther west. And again, that goes back to my theory and my plausibility of it is possible that the strongest winds just stay away from our coastline. But again, up to this point, the GFS American model has been the more consistent, has been better with this storm, so I'm going to stick with it. And if this is the case, I think this is a very realistic graphic showing how the strongest of winds go right like that. Basically, most of it just off our coastline, but a lot of it scraping along our coastline. 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts are going to be very common tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, and then departing early Wednesday morning. Even though, yes, the rain will be heavy, it's nothing we can't handle. It's hard to believe that just a few weeks ago, right, everybody was talking about, well, we're so dry, can we get some heavy rain? And we always joke about how, hey, just be patient, give it some time, and you'll get some heavy rain. And sure enough, here we are just a few weeks later, and we've had about 5 to 10 inches of rain, and now we're talking about potentially tons more. So tonight, there's some scattered storms in the area, and then here comes Elsa, and notice, again, we're under the assumption that the center of circulation, whatever it is of Elsa, might stay just offshore, but the heaviest of rains will be on the eastern side, wrapping around like this. So notice there's some heavy rain all the way into Polk County. So this is going to be Sarasota, Manatee, Hardy, DeSoto, Polk, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, Sumter, Osceola. Well, maybe not Osceola, maybe not that far west, and Levy County. So those are going to be your main areas that really get the heaviest of rains. Here, let me put the precip total on, and this probably gives you a better idea. There you go. So that's over the next 24 to 48 hours, and that kind of gives you an idea of, yeah, there's a big swath of heavy rain, easily probably 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches, and probably areas that easily pick up 4 to 8 inches. I wouldn't even be surprised if near the coast there might be a splotchy area that picks up anywhere between 5 and 10 inches of rain. It is one of those situations where it will drop off dramatically the farther east you live. So that's what we're looking at. I mean, the radar out of Cuba doesn't look that impressive, but this does give you an indication that, yes, it's all on the eastern side. See it over here? So the center of circulation is right about in here, and look at all the rain wrapping around on the eastern side. So yeah, that's your latest radar imagery, and yeah, that doesn't look that impressive. It is going to miss, however, the highest elevation mountains. The tallest mountains in Cuba are back here and out here. So it does look likely it's going to shoot the gap right there over the shortest mountains. And that is why this will likely survive. Now, will it help weaken it? Yes, absolutely. I do think it will be weaker later tonight going into tomorrow morning. But I think it will survive. So if you're hoping for, well, it just falls apart and we wake up tomorrow morning and there's nothing, nah, that's not going to happen. There still will be something there. But we are definitely getting help with land interaction. If it weren't for that, then this storm definitely would have been stronger. So in that case, we are lucky. All right, that's the latest on Tropical Storm Elsa. Again, this is Monday. This is the 11 a.m. update. I'll give more updates later today if need be, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of changes with this forecast. I'll probably update again tomorrow on what we're seeing at that time. All right, I'm meteorologist Brian McClure. Have a great Monday.